Hi, I'm Reverend Jake Zabe, and welcome to Children's Bible Stories. Alright children, today's story is going to be the story of the ascension of Jesus into heaven. So after Jesus rose from the dead, he spent 40 days on earth with his disciples, teaching them, preaching to them, and explaining to them what they were to do after Jesus was gone. Now, on the 40th day, they were staying in Jerusalem, and Jesus was telling to them that you have heard from me, from John baptized with water, but you'll be baptized with the Holy Spirit not many days from now. And so Jesus got them up and he led them out of the city as far as the Mount of Olives. And while they were on the Mount of Olives, the disciples said to Jesus, "Lord, will you at this time restore the kingdom of Israel?" See, because even though Jesus had died and rose from the dead, and he'd explained to the disciples that they had to go and preach the word, the disciples still didn't get it. They still didn't understand exactly what Jesus had come to do. They thought that Jesus was going to be this earthly Messiah that was going to establish this great Jewish empire, and that he was going to conquer the Romans, and that the kingdom of Israel would be established again under this great and glorious earthly king. The disciples just didn't get it. And this is important to remember, because Jesus told the disciples that when the Holy Spirit comes upon them, which the Spirit will do at Pentecost, which we'll discuss in our next story, that at Pentecost the Holy Spirit would come upon the disciples and he would bring to remembrance all that Jesus had taught them. So even though Jesus taught his disciples all this stuff, they still didn't understand. They weren't yet enlightened by the Holy Spirit. And this is important to remember, children, because in the Small Catechism, Luther tells us that we cannot believe in God by our own reason, will, or strength. It is only by the power of the Holy Spirit working in us that we are able to have faith and believe in Jesus. Without the Holy Spirit, one cannot understand the words of Jesus. And so even though Jesus had explained to the disciples what they were to do and how he had come to die on the cross and that he wasn't establishing some kind of earthly kingdom, they still did not yet understand what that meant. It would only be on the day of Pentecost, when the Holy Spirit came upon the disciples and enlightened them, that they finally remembered everything Jesus had taught them and finally understood everything that Jesus was teaching. And so at this point in time, the disciples did not yet understand, and they asked Jesus if he was going to restore the kingdom of Israel at this time. To which Jesus said, "It is not for you to know the times or seasons that the Father has fixed by his own authority, but you will receive the power when the Holy Spirit comes upon you, and you'll be my witnesses in Jerusalem, in Judea, in Samaria, and to the ends of the earth." And so Jesus promised that, look, you guys don't understand what's going on here. You know, it is not for you guys to know what God's going to do with the kingdoms of this world. God will do that, and you guys aren't to know that. But when the Holy Spirit comes upon you, then you guys will finally understand. And then you'll go out and you'll be my witnesses. First in Jerusalem, so you'll preach to all the people in the city of Jerusalem. Then to Judea, you'll preach to all the Jews. Then you'll go to Samaria, you'll preach to all the Samaritans. And then you'll go out to the ends of the earth, preaching to all the Gentiles. That is, all the non-Jewish people. And the Bible then tells us that as Jesus was speaking to them, he ascended up into heaven and he disappeared into a cloud so that the disciples couldn't see him anymore. And Jesus was gone. And as the disciples were standing there looking up into heaven going, "Where did he go? I don't see him." The Bible tells us that two men dressed in white, these would have been two angels, came and said to him, "Why are you standing there gazing up into heaven? Behold, men of Galilee, Jesus was taken from you up into heaven, and he will come back to you in the same way that you saw him go." And we know this, that in the Bible it tells us time and time again that when Jesus returns, that he'll return coming on clouds of heaven. And so, just as Jesus went into heaven and was distorted by a cloud, when Jesus returns at the second coming, he will come down from the clouds. And so, after that, the disciples went back to Jerusalem praising God, and they went to go and wait for Pentecost, which we're going to discuss in our next video, children. So, that's the end of our story for today. I've been your host, Reverend Jake Zabel. Goodbye and God bless.